Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Prospector Live. This is a very special edition, and I am very excited about everyone that is joining us this morning. I appreciate everybody that is joining us so far this morning, joining live. We're going to have quite a few that are going to check this out later via recording, and I thank you guys as well that are watching this via recording on YouTube later. But for those joining live, I really appreciate your dedication to showing up and giving us a little bit of your time this morning, because we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff. Now, really quickly, for those veteran prospectors out there that are used to doing this every single month, welcome back. I'm glad to be with you. Of course, I look forward to this every single month, as I always point out. But we actually have a special edition today. We have quite a few of our beloved students out there and some of your fellow students and traders that are joining us that have never been on a Prospector webinar before. In fact, they're joining today because this is a special edition. We've opened it up to everybody. We invited all of our students across the spectrum, whether they are part of our metals program or not, and there's good reason for it. We're going to be getting into that shortly, but go ahead, for those of you out there that do join me every single month, put it in the chat, welcome some of your fellow TRADEway students to their first Prospector webinar ever, and of course, we're going to enjoy the fellowship. We're going to enjoy kind of giving them some first exposure to what it's like to be a part of the program and to be a part of Prospector Live, specifically the show that we have every single month. And I'm very excited for those of you that are brand new, just to see what it's like, get to know us a little bit, and get an idea of our metals support program, which of course is the Prospector resources. So great to be with everybody. I see the chat is already blowing up with everybody hopping in and telling us where you're from. I appreciate that. Feel free to continue to do that, especially those of you who are somewhat new. Let us know where you're from and a little bit about yourself as we get to know some of y'all as we progress throughout the show today. Now, what's this all about? Why are we having a special edition in April? What's so special about this particular webinar, and why did we open it up to everybody? Well, that actually comes into play with regard to what today's topic is going to be all about. So for those of you that are new, the standard routine is that we will open the show up with kind of some new developments in the metals industry, some of the news, some topical things that are very relevant to the current market and what's driving prices, some things for us to take into consideration when it comes to making our own individual precious metals investments. We'll talk about all those kinds of things. And then we segue from kind of that topical section into looking at the charts, which we are going to do today, by the way. And then we'll end it by talking about some of the demand trends with regard to some of the more popular coins out there, coins and bars, things like that, and answering questions if there are any, and things of that sort. So for today's kind of teaching section, or topical section, whatever you'd like to call it, we're actually going to be looking at a particular document that we've already sent you guys. All of you should have already received it in your email at some point. We've been sending it out over the past maybe 2 or 3 weeks or so. And we're going to look at it. I'm literally going to pull it up on my screen here in just a second. But before I do, check out the chat. Andrew, my colleague, who I will introduce in just a second. I didn't forget about you, Andrew. He just put it in the chat. You guys can actually click that and open up the very document we're about to look at together and what I'm going to be walking you guys through. Now, when you click on this link, it'll take you to a landing page, and it will require you to put in your name and email. And when you do that, it's going to send you the ebook that we're about to talk about in detail. Now, I'll just tell you straight up. You may be thinking, why do I need to put my email in? What's the catch there? Well, first of all, there's no catch. But second of all, the reason why we need your email is because we are going to be rolling out a lot of new, exciting, precious metals related content and education throughout the rest of 2024. In fact, we have several things in the works right now that I am super excited about. For those of you who know me, you know that I am the precious metals operations manager here at TRADEway. It's my main thing. I've been doing it for over 10 years at this point. So I'm very passionate about precious metals, and we're going to be rolling out some really exciting new content for you guys throughout the year. And so we need your email address so that you can be the first one to hear about it. You can get the information as soon as it's ready to go. It'll come straight to you guys. So click on the link, just put in your email address for me, and then you're going to get the ebook we're about to look at together, which is going to answer one of the biggest questions I get and have gotten over the years, and that is, how do I find a reputable precious metals dealer? In other words, how do I know that the person or organization that I'm purchasing metals from, coins, bars, gold, silver, you name it, how do I know they're reputable and then I'm not getting ripped off and then I'm not paying too much money for something that may not even help me, maybe not even help me accomplish my objectives? So that's the question that we're answering on today's show. And the ebook that is in the link in your chat that you can click on and get access to for free is it answers all of it in detail as well. And I want you guys to have the ebook, even though we're going to be talking about it live today, because even when the show is over, I want y'all to have access to that so you don't forget any of what we're going to talk about. And it will protect you. It will help protect you and your family from paying too much money for gold and silver coins, various products that, again, may or may not help you at all with regard to your objectives, your goals. So get the ebook. It's in the chat. It's for free. We're going to talk about it, but you guys need to have that. You need to have access to it. Now, one last point before we actually jump into it. What's with the timing on this ebook? Why are we releasing this ebook right now? Even though, this is something I've addressed kind of on a case-by-case basis, certainly in our education, the precious metals education that we have, it's discussed, how to find a good reputable dealer. But why release a free ebook to make available to everybody with the specific points that we're going to be talking about? And hey, Andrew, if you want, you can just, there you go. He's on top of it. Andrew will be putting in the link periodically for those of you who are joining a little bit late so that you have it. The reason is this. TRADEway has partnerships. We have various partnerships with various organizations out there. We don't take on partnerships lightly. We do so after much prayer and consultation, not only with the Lord, but also with everyone involved at TRADEway. We're very much a family-oriented organization, a family-run business. And so we have partners, but they are well-picked partners. They are partners that we know will help further our mission here at TRADEway, which is to break down the confusing world of finance so that any of our students can understand it, among other things. But just because we have partners and companies that we will work with that will help us accomplish our mission, it does not necessitate that whatever our partners endorse, that is also what TRADEway endorses, okay? And it doesn't matter what partner you're talking about. What they endorse does not necessarily mean that TRADEway endorses it. That's a very important thing for all of you guys to remember. The reason I say that here in this context is because some of our partners have recently established relationships with precious metals dealers out there that do not meet the criteria that TRADEway wants our students to look for. It does not meet the criteria that we care about here at TRADEway in regards to helping you guys be cost-effective metals investors. And so some of you guys may have even been exposed to some metals dealers recently that were encouraged by certain organizations for you to check out and to get involved with. And that's perfectly fine. You guys are adults. You guys are your own investor. It's your prerogative to decide who you're going to be purchasing your metals from. So what we want to do here at TRADEway is we simply want to equip you with a little bit of ammunition, for lack of a better term, so that you know how to protect yourself from paying too much money or certain sales traps perhaps, or anything like that may not actually help progress your family's mission. I hope all that makes sense. I could go on and on about it, but that's kind of the heart behind today's show, what we're going to be talking about, the ebook that we just released and that we're going to be looking at here in just a second. All of these types of things, that's the heart behind it. We want to equip you guys as much as possible so that you can go out and do some of these things yourself. Now, okay, Andrea, I see your chat right there, and there may be others that are thinking, man, I really wish I'd had this information sooner, or I wish I hadn't already worked with a particular dealer. Let me say this, and I was going to cover this at the end, but I'll go ahead and kind of at least give you a little taste of it. If you have already worked with the dealer before, and it could be recent, within the last few weeks, or it could be in the last 10 years, and you feel like it probably wasn't the best choice, I probably paid too much for the coins I got, I may not have even gotten the best options out there. Listen, when it comes down to it, as long as the metals you got are real, and they most likely are, because here in the United States, even though regulations are practically zero when it comes to the metals industry, the big dealers out there, the big names, they may have some sales strategies, they may have some sales tactics, they may get you to buy something that's less than ideal, less than cost effective, but the metal is going to be real. You could test it yourself, but it's going to be real. And when it comes down to it, metal is metal. So don't beat yourself up too much, because you may have overpaid for it. You may not have gotten the absolute best option for you and your family, which that's what TRADEway is here for. We don't sell metals. We don't sell gold and silver. We educate people on how to do it. It may not meet our criteria, but it's still metal, and it's still going to be useful at some point down the road. So don't beat yourself up too much. Do this and encourage yourself with this. Take the information we're about to look at and moving forward, because you're going to be making additional metals purchases at some point in the future, especially if you follow the TRADEway strategies. Understand that you could use the information we're about to cover and use that for your next purchase, your next investment, and you can pass the skill sets down to the next generation so that they can do the same thing. So again, don't beat yourself up. Be encouraged. And the information we're about to look at, I think, will be very helpful, and my hope is that it will be a blessing to you guys. Now, with all that being said, let me introduce my great friend and colleague, Andrew Wilburn. He is our precious metals analyst here at TRADEway. He's going to be the one looking at the charts here in a little bit, so you guys can get a little bit of taste of what it's like to be a prospector. And he's one of my greatest friends, and of course, I love having him on these for his insights in the metals space. So, Andrew, how you doing out there today?
Doing great, Ben. I certainly appreciate the introduction there. Of course, both Ben and I do enjoy educating students within the precious metals arena. There's a lot of information out there, and as Ben's been talking about, we're going to go ahead and present some material to you that hopefully will make things a little more clear, a little more easier for you to understand as to why or as to what we're looking for as well when we're purchasing metals, because both Ben and I are metals investors as well. My father-in-law is actually an avid coin collector, which is pretty interesting. I mean, Ben very well knows as well, but there's different aspects of those things. As of right now, we're trying to teach you how to essentially help your purchasing power when it comes to your hard-earned money, essentially. So both Ben and I have a heart for that, and hopefully that comes across from us to you. We want y'all to be able to achieve your end goals, whether that be through trading or even through metals, things like that. We have conversations with students across the country when it comes to purchasing metals. So this is something that we enjoy doing. It's something we help students with on a daily basis. I'm going to be looking at charts for you later, as Ben had said. But Ben and I talk. We talk a lot in regards to what's going on, not only within metals, but on a geopolitical spectrum as well, because that can essentially impact what we're seeing within the gold industry, so or the metals industry, I should say. So great to have you here. Hope that you learned something, obviously, and I think you will. But yeah, Ben's going to go ahead and take us through, and then if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll be more than happy to answer them. Also, you can always send us an email to metals@tradeway.com or preciousmetals@tradeway.com. We'll be more than happy to assist you. So yeah, great to have you guys here. Ben, go ahead. You can take it over.
That's awesome, Andrew. And we'll put that email address in the chat for you guys later too, so you have quick access to it. In fact, I think it's in the ebook. If you just click on that link, put in your email, you'll get the ebook in your inbox within like a minute. Our contact information to come directly to Andrew and myself should be in that ebook. And so keep that in mind too. Now, Andrew, don't let me forget. I actually want to bring your father-in-law. You mentioned him, and I'm glad you did. Put a pin in that, because when I'm done going through all this, I want you to remind me to mention him one more time, okay? Because I want to use him as an example of something very important within the more broad context of what we're about to talk about. So with that being said, let me share my screen really quick. And listen, guys, I didn't prepare like a super fancy PowerPoint or anything for you guys today, and I did that intentionally. I wanted to literally just pop up the ebook that you're getting in your inbox, totally free. There's no strings attached other than your email address, and I already told you what that's for. It's because I want you guys to get alerted first for all of the metals content we're going to be releasing throughout the year. A lot of new courses, a lot of new things like that. And so get it, and this is exactly what you're going to be seeing when you get it, and I wanted you to kind of get a preview of it. Let me just briefly show you really quick. There's chapters. As you can see, there's a lot of text, a lot of detail that goes into explaining what each of these points are, these things to watch out for, and things like that. So it's very detailed. Let me go to the end here. I'm almost positive that, yeah, there it is. So you are going to have our email address. Again, that right there, preciousmetals@tradeway.com. That's gonna go straight to Andrew and myself when you have questions. So let me go back to the top here, and I'm going to do a single page and go to the next page. And we're literally just going to stay parked right here, and I'm going to go through the 5 points. I'm not going to go into the text itself because you guys will have access to that after all this is over. And so we're literally just going to be looking at this first page, go through the 5 points together, and talk through some of these things. So what is the answer to the question, how do I find a reputable dealer? Well, there are some ways to know how the dealer itself is reputable, but one of the first things you should do is ask yourselves, what are some things to look out for to get an idea that maybe they're not so reputable? And by reputable, it's a little bit of a vague term. I mainly mean one thing, and that is how honest are they? How transparent are they? They could be reputable in the sense that they have millions of customers across the country, maybe even across the world. So if you're defining reputable like that, then that's a little bit too vague, a little bit too, it doesn't really cover the main things that we want to establish here. What I mean by reputable is how honest are they? How transparent are they? Are they going to put my benefit and goals and objectives first, or are they going to just put themselves first? Those are the types of things I mean by reputable. So the first thing in kind of dissecting this idea, how reputable are they, is first looking for these signs that might tell us they're not reputable, kind of starting on the negative side of it first. So that's what this ebook is all about, and that's what these points are. So point number 1, the big name endorsements. What do we mean by that? The metals industry is a very interesting industry because it's huge. The volume is massive. In other words, the amount of product that the metals industry moves, gold and silver coins, obviously there's other metals as well, platinum, palladium, there's collectible coins, there's all kinds of cool stuff, but let's just keep it simple, gold and silver, all right? There is so much product to be moved that the volume of sales from our perspective will be super high. For example, any given precious metals dealer out there could have $500 million in gross revenue in any given year, or maybe even less than a year. I mean, just massive, staggering numbers. But here's the catch there. It's not actually, that's not their net profit, that's their gross profit. In fact, their net profit is going to be a fraction of that massively large number. And then, of course, they have to pay for their overhead, they got to pay for their staff, their facilities, their shipping costs, depending on what all they cover. The overhead is really high, and so that leaves what is left for just like true legitimate profit for a company to be very little, relatively speaking. The reason all this is true is because the margins, the sales margins for precious metals products, gold and silver coins, are razor thin, like very, very, very small. And so their gross revenue will look massive because you're paying for a gold, people are out there paying for gold coins that are $2,000, over $2,000. But remember, their profit margin on that is tiny because the large majority of what you're paying for is the spot price. It's not actually their premium, their markup, the price that they would profit off of. It's very small. So just remember that principle, because knowing that will help you a lot with knowing who is honest and who has the most honest business practices, and what are their objectives as a company. Margins are razor thin. Why is that important? Why do you need to know that? Well, look at point number 1 on your screen, the big name endorsements. If you go to a website, and I'm not going to name any names on this webinar. I'm not going to go through a list of all of the dealers that I could list. It's not necessary. Like, if you guys have this information right here, you'll be able to knock those out. You'll be able to go put your own list together within minutes after this webinar is over. So I don't necessarily need to regurgitate my experience as a metals investor over the last 10 years with the specific companies that took advantage of me when I was younger and before I had accumulated all of the information that I have now and that I based our education off of so that you guys didn't have to make those mistakes. I don't have to go through all that. You can do it yourself, and you can do it easily. When you go to a website and you see a big name endorsement, it could be Glenn Beck. It could be Glenn Beck. It could be Ben Shapiro. It could be Joe Montana is one of my favorite ones that I've seen a lot recently on like infomercials and stuff. It's really funny. Joe Montana, Mark Levin. There are so many out there. When you see a company that has a big name endorsement like that, you need to think, how could they afford that? Remember, they have razor thin margins. They can barely afford their massive overhead and have very little profit left over. How, if that is true, if that principle is true, that there's razor thin margins, how can they afford a big name endorsement out there? Well, I'll tell you how. The margins are razor thin, but with one exception. And some of you guys may be able to guess what that exception is. In fact, if you want to take a guess at it, put it in the chat. What do you think the one exception is to increasing your margins if you're a metals dealer? What product would you want to sell a lot? I'm seeing if some of our veterans out there may be able to put that answer in the chat. And I don't want to waste too much time. I know some of you guys may be trying to find the chat in the first place. It put it in there. But, here we go. Noah says collectibles. And that's exactly the right answer. I'm scrolling down a little bit because there's a whole lot of chats that I hadn't seen yet. But that is the right answer there, Noah. The answer is collectibles. That is the only product where some, let's just say, for lack of a better term, subjectivity comes into play, where a dealer can kind of justify increasing the margins considerably, and they justify it by saying this is a collectible. It's rare. There are components here that give rise to increasing that premium to such a degree. So if you see a company that has the big name endorsements out there, most likely the only way they could have afforded that big name endorsement and actually had the profits left over to pay someone however millions of dollars they pay such a name to go out and tell the world, hey, I think you should go with XYZ gold dealer. It's because they are focusing on collectibles and selling collectibles to you and to their clientele hard, like they are pushing hard on that particular goal. There are a lot of reasons why collectibles are not going to help you accomplish your objectives. I go into detail on it in our precious metals education. Perhaps depending on how much time we have left over, I can go into a little bit more detail here. But just understand this. Collectibles are not the product choice that you are going after, nor is it the thing that will help you accomplish your objectives if you're here on this webinar. Assuming that you're not a collectible, that you're not a hobbyist, and that your main goal is to protect your family and to preserve some of your purchasing power and to diversify, have some general diversification, and to have something that protects against inflation, things of that sort. Collectibles are not the thing to help you do that. And you are going to pay exorbitant fees, exorbitant premiums in order to pay for that collectible when you could have saved tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on how large of an investor you are, had you gone with something different, gone with something that's not collectibles. Well, the issue is if you run into somebody that has the big name endorsements, they're selling collectibles, that's the only way they can afford such massive airtime, if you will, and they're going to be pushing collectibles on you hard. So you got to ask yourself a question. Is it worth my time arguing with someone over the phone and explaining to them, no, I don't need collectibles, this is what I need, and then hearing them argue with you and explain to you why no, you actually don't know what you're talking about and you need collectibles for this reason and that reason? These are things that have happened to me personally. I have wasted a number amount of hours on the phone when I was learning all of this stuff myself with people literally arguing with me, telling me what my objective should be, not what I actually wanted. So that is a big sign. watch out for it. If they got a big name endorsement, that could be a red flag. Let's go to number 2, because I could spend the whole hour on each of these. The verbiage. What do I mean by the verbiage? Well, when you go to a website and you notice that they have big up in the top banner, or maybe even just big right in the middle of their screen, something like #1 rated gold company, or #1 choice in America, or #1 rated, or whatever it may, you could come up with a number of configurations of that particular phrase. Well, I find it really funny that there are multiple #1 rated companies in America. The last I checked, there could only be one true #1. There can only be one true #1. And yet you will find dozens of metals dealers out there that will say #1 rated on their thing. And of course, that is to instill a little bit of trust in you, so that you see that and you think, okay, well, they must be reputable because they're the #1 rated company out there. And so that means other people trust them. And so I'm going to go ahead and see what they have. Well, there's usually a catch there. They will have some kind of justification, because there can only be one truly #1 rated company, right? Logically speaking. But they'll find some ways to wiggle around that, and that's why you'll find a dozen or more companies that say it. And they'll base it off of maybe their BBB rating, or their trust link score, or whatever it may be. But guys, listen, especially when it comes to the metals industry, that cannot be your sole criteria for finding a reputable, honest, transparent metals dealer. The BBB is kind of a facade, in my opinion. It can be useful for certain things, but listen, in order to be in good standing with the BBB, you have to be accredited. Well, how do you become accredited? You pay the BBB. So, yeah, they have a great score. They've got an A+ score or whatever, but they're paying this unbiased third party that's telling you that they're reputable and all this kind of stuff. There's just way too many flaky aspects to those types of things. I'm not saying that it's totally unuseful in all categories, but in my opinion, when it comes to precious metals dealers, and even the reputable ones will have a BBB rating, don't get me wrong, they'll all have it. But my point is, don't let that be the sole criteria that you use. Don't just see that they have an A+ BBB rating, and therefore they are transparent, honest, reputable, and that's who I need to go with. Don't let that be your sole criteria. And usually, if you see that accompanied with a phrase such as #1 rated or something like that, that's the big red flag for me. They're not the #1 rated. They're not the #1 choice for everybody. They're not the most reputable. You may not have even heard of them before, and yet they're #1 rated somehow. And so when you see a phrase like that, in my opinion, that is a sign of dishonesty. And I save myself time. I save myself minutes, hours, and by the way, getting bugged to death with them ringing my phone constantly, because you'll notice another common theme is they'll want your information. They'll want your phone number. And almost always your phone number is required, not just your email, but your phone number. And that's because they have salesmen that they employ that will call you all the time to get you to buy some coins from them. And lo and behold, they're either commemoratives or collectibles. So pay close attention to the verbiage on the websites. And sometimes, and the more you do it, the more you'll know. A lot of what you'll see will be a really good, just little warning, a little red flag, a little like, oh, that doesn't sound quite right. And you'll want to look into it a little bit more. And then you'll find some more of what we're about to look at, and it all adds up, and you'll want to avoid those people like the plague, in my opinion. So that's a good one. But looking at the verbiage, paying attention to some of those phrases is especially good, especially strong when you do it in conjunction with some of these other things that we'll keep looking at here. So if you see the big name endorsements and some verbiage like #1 rated together, that's a good sign that they're probably not the most honest option. But look at number 3, the bait and switch. This one is just like classic. I mean, this is foundational with regard to kind of sleazy sales tactics and it runs rampant in many industries. It's not isolated in the metals industry, but it's used a lot in the metals industry. And how does it work? Well, you'll see a commercial. You will see, maybe a mailer. Like they'll send old school mailers, and you'll get like a printout in your mailbox, or you'll see a commercial, or you will hear them on the radio, or maybe you're listening to a podcast like Glenn Beck or Ben Shapiro, and they do a they do a little quick ad for their customer, and they'll mention you get a coupon and get your gold or whatever. What they're doing, and maybe they'll say like best prices around or something like that. What they're doing, and this is from personal experience, they are advertising what they know is the cheapest. And just to throw out a quick technical term, this is, I believe, is defined in the ebook later on. But bullion, okay, so you have collectibles, you have commemoratives, then you have the more generic term of bullion, like bullion coins, bullion bars, things like that, bullion. And they will use just like your good run-of-the-mill bullion products, like an American Silver Eagle. I think that's one a lot of people would recognize, or maybe the Canadian Maple Leaf. And they'll give a super cheap price, like barely anything above the spot price. That is another little red flag. I didn't even include it here, but maybe you jot that down. If you see that their price is just barely above the spot price, and some will even say at the spot price, which is just a lie. Don't ever believe that. If you hear anybody say, well, I have a guy that I could buy it at the spot price, that is a blatant lie, and I can explain that in detail, maybe if anyone wants to give me a call or send me an email just to learn more about that or why that principle is true, I'm more than happy to explain it. But just know it is true. So it'll either be barely above spot or like at spot. And all they're doing is they're reeling you in, saying best prices around, super affordable, super cheap. You give them a call, and lo and behold, they couldn't care less about the bullion coins that they have, if they even have them. They want to sell the collectibles or the commemoratives. That's the switch. So they'll advertise a Canadian silver maple leaf. You give them a call, and they're going to sell a 1.5 ounce Canadian polar bear or something a little bit more exotic that is actually a commemorative coin, not just your good old-fashioned, brilliant uncirculated bullion coin. Again, some of those technical terms are defined in the ebook, so get that, and you can read up on that a little bit more. I'm having to move a little bit quick for the sake of time. We're already past the half-hour mark. So the bait and switch, watch out for their advertising tactics. In other words, the kinds of things that they try to do to reel you in. Typically, advertising in general is a little bit of a red flag to me because, again, their profit margin should not be great enough for them to afford kind of the shotgun advertising that you see, like radio ads and TV commercials. These are very expensive things. It requires a large budget to afford those kinds of things. And so, yeah, I mean, there you go. Take that information as well and kind of plug that into the equation. Number 4, unpublished prices. What does that mean? Well, you will be surprised at how prevalent it is to go to a website and you're looking at maybe the products they have available, and you'll notice there are no prices. There's no prices on anything. If anything, there may be something that says call for price or, call for bid or whatever it may be. Listen to me. There is absolutely zero reason why especially the larger dealers out there, and especially the ones that can afford guys like Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro, Joe Montana, Mark Levin, Steve Forbes, you name it. Of all dealers out there, there should be no reason why they wouldn't publish their prices. They wouldn't show you, they wouldn't be able to afford the technology to have their prices update in real time. If some of the smaller dealers can do it, they sure can. There's no reason why they shouldn't have their prices published so that you can have that information and make your decisions without wasting your time on a phone call with somebody, giving you the runaround and things like that. And so if you see that there are prices not published, I exit out of that website and I move on. That is one of the biggest red flags to me, because the moment you call for that price, you get reeled in. Now, obviously, you can hang up the phone anytime you want. You guys are adults. You can do, in fact, you may even have a little bit of fun using some of this information and giving one of these guys a call and listening for these tactics and listening for them to happen and wait for it, and then maybe even call them out on it. I don't know. It depends on your personality type. I am the type that does not want to deal with that kind of stuff. My time is precious. I believe your time is precious. And so I don't want you guys to have to waste it. And so if you go to a website and it says call for price and they don't have prices published, pick a different one. There's zero reason why it should be like that, why they shouldn't have their prices there. And the only reason it would be like that is to get you to call them so that they can begin their strategic sales the way that they do. Now let's move on to number 5. and we'll kind of wrap this up. We'll summarize a little bit, talk about a few things, and then I want you guys to get a taste of what the rest of our Prospector Live is all about. We're going to look at charts and talk about gold and silver currently, like the current price. And number 5, of course, is the fear tactics. And this is a big one. It kind of goes without saying. You guys probably have the discernment already to pick up on some of these things, but it's worth talking about. The precious metals industry is absolutely, in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and stop my screen share so that that way there's nothing in the way here. And you guys have the ebook. The link is in there. Get it, download it. You'll have all the information that we were just looking at plus more. You'll have all the text of the ebook as well. Fear tactics. The precious metals industry thrives on fear. It is the driving force behind why people go buy coins and bars in the first place. That's one of the biggest reasons why TRADEway got into the industry as an educator, not as a seller, but as an educator, because we don't want our students falling prey to the fear-induced urgency that is, again, that the industry thrives on. So when you hear things such as, you know, the price is going to be at 5,000 by the end of the year, so you need to get in while you can, or the political the election cycle that's coming up, you know, that's probably going to be really volatile. You need to be thinking about these things. Or perhaps my favorite one, and I say favorite is in my least favorite, it's the one that drives me the craziest, is you need to buy our collectibles because the government will confiscate your gold and silver. You need to be aware that the government's going to come confiscate your gold at some point, and you need to buy our collectibles because that will protect you from that. You need to buy our commemoratives because that will protect you from that. Those are fear tactics. Now, a couple of things. A second ago, I mentioned things like an election cycle and volatility. Those things are true, and you do need to factor that in yourself as just an investor. You would do that anyway, though, as a trader. You already take into consideration possible volatility based on what the market's given you. So you don't need someone to preach that at you. So I'm not saying don't take things like that into account, but when you hear someone telling it to you as if it's like some special information, some special revelation, and you need to be thinking about these scary things so that you buy from me now, that's a red flag. But the whole confiscation thing is a total farce. I mean, that is, again, one of the most egregious sales tactics, in my opinion. I actually go into detail on that sales tactic in our precious metals course. It's called Protect Your Future. Some of you are familiar with that. Maybe some of you aren't just yet. A lot of you on this webinar most likely have access to it, and you might not even know it. You can always email our office to get some confirmation on whether or not you have it. But in the course, I go into detail on that particular sales tactic, that the government will come and confiscate your gold or something like that because it happened back in 1933. First of all, that's not true. There was no confiscation back in 1933. It was purchased by the government. There were some erroneous things that took place, and the government did rip everybody off, but it wasn't the same as confiscation. That term is used just to scare people. So if you hear people talking about scary stuff, the election cycle coming up, the inflation being out of control, hyperinflation around the corner, the dollar is going to collapse, the government's going to come confiscate your gold and silver coins, so you need to get our collectibles instead. Andrew could probably think of some other examples. But when you hear these scary things, those are classic sales tactic 101 type fear tactics, strategic sales type stuff, but unscrupulous sales tactics, things that aren't honest, things that are cheating people out of the real objective facts. And so that's a big one. Number 5 is a big one. But when you see all of these together, when you see, in fact, I'll share my screen one more time. You get just one more kind of fresh look at all of it. When you see all of these things together, you got the big name endorsements, the verbiage, the bait and switch, the unpublished prices, and the fear tactics. And by the way, I can name at least 5, maybe as many as 10 dealers off the top of my head. I'm not going to do that because I'm not TRADEway is not going to do a webinar and then throw other people under the bus. I'm equipping you with this information, these skill sets, so that you can do this yourself. I think that's a more honest approach. But I'm just saying, from my personal experience, I could probably name at least 5 dealers that do all 5 of these together all the time. Maybe there are some dealers that only do a few of them, or 1 or 2. But there are many that do all 5. And so in conjunction, obviously you have all of these individual red flags, but when you see them all in conjunction, you just got to set that dealer aside. If you've worked with one like that before, you know better now, and you know not to ever go with them again, and you can pick a better dealer. And by the way, in the ebook, we do give you guys what we believe to be a very, in fact, I would say the most, I can say this in clear conscience, the most reputable, transparent, honest dealer out there, because we don't sell it ourselves, but there is a family-owned company out there that I've been personally working with for a decade at this point that will help you guys with all of this. But you still have to have the info, because you may be right in the middle of working with another dealer, and maybe some of these red flags have already popped up, and you needed to know, like, am I looking into this too much, or is this the real deal? Is this actually something I need to pay attention to? The answer is yes. And with this ebook, with this information, you guys are going to be equipped to protect you and your family big time in avoiding these types of dealers. So let's see. Andrea, that's an interesting question. My dealer keeps referring me to APMEX, and that's American Precious Metals Exchange. That's actually a pretty decent dealer, to compare and confirm the prices of precious metals. Is this a reputable website? Now, are you asking if APMEX is a reputable website, or if the dealer you're working with? APMEX, excuse me, I'm stumbling over my words because I'm too excited. I'm talking too fast. While I have not personally used them in a long, long time, I would consider them up there as probably one of the better ones. Is it the best? Are they the most reputable? Probably not. Again, I told you guys a second ago in the ebook, I tell you what I believe to be the best. But my past with APMEX isn't the worst. However, what it sounds like is going on here is you say your dealer is referring you to them. It sounds like what your dealer is trying to do is to get you to go to their website, compare prices so that you see that their prices are the best, so that you'll follow through with them rather than with someone like APMEX. Here's the thing. There's a lot of hidden costs that they will not tell you about until it comes time to actually pay them the money. So yeah, their prices may be better, quote unquote, on their website or over the phone, but they don't tell you about the fact that you're going to be paying for insurance while it's being shipped to you. They're not going to tell you that you got to pay the shipping costs. They're not going to tell you that you're actually paying a commission fee for the guy you're talking to on the phone. They're not going to tell you that there are hidden costs, hidden fees that some dealers may cover for you or not even have at all, that you are going to realize later you're going to have to pay. Maybe they have a minimum order threshold. You got to pay a minimum of $10,000 to get even what we're talking about. Yeah, it's the best price, but you got to buy a minimum of $10,000 worth. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So keep all that in mind, Andrea, and everyone else as well, when you are working with folks like this. So get the ebook. The link is in there. Now, Andrew, I wanted you to remind me of your father-in-law, and I didn't forget. So let me just mention him really quick. There is one exception, everybody, to everything we just talked about. There is one exception that of a type of person that may actually want to go buy collectibles from any particular dealer. And that is someone like Andrew's father-in-law, who is an awesome guy, who is a legitimate collector. In other words, obviously, if you have a love and desire for collectible coins or commemorative coins, and maybe you want to buy some of them for gifts for your kids or grandkids, or maybe you're investing in precious metals over here, and that's where bullion comes into play. That's where the types of products TRADEway would recommend comes into play to protect your money. But then over here, you have a little bit of sliver, like a little sliver of your metals funds that you do use for collectibles, not for investment purposes, but just as collector purposes, to be a collector, to be a hobbyist. If you are that kind of person, goodness gracious, by all means, go out there and enjoy it, because coin collecting is a legitimately, genuinely fun and fulfilling thing to do. I am a member of the American Numismatic Association, It has nothing to do with the kind of stuff that I teach in the metals division here at TRADEway, but I love it. It's really fun to learn about the history behind coins and to see what collectible coins are available out there, to get into numismatics in a larger context. So guys like Andrew's father-in-law is a legitimate collector, a legitimate hobbyist that does it for the fun and for the fun of it, and he knows what he's doing, and he's going to someday pass all that down to his kids, and it'll be a wonderful legacy to have. If that is you, then obviously collectibles are great, but most likely a lot of you out there listening today are not that person. You're not really interested in collecting and things like that. And so don't be fooled by someone that's telling you that in order to protect yourself, in order to protect your money and to preserve your purchasing power and all these great things, you have to purchase collectibles to do it. That is not accurate in any way, shape, or form. So I've eaten up so much time, Andrew, as I usually do, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, we can answer these questions real quick here. I can be pretty quick with the charts, but James is asking about what your opinion is for gold back.
Goldbacks. Let's see here. I believe you might correct me, James, but are those like the new? They're like bills, but they're made of actual gold, like a certain amount of grams of gold. I think that's what you're talking about.
That's the ones that I kind of showed you with the silver as well there, Ben.
Yes. Okay. James says yes. That's what he's talking about. So I actually think that could be a very intriguing kind of new development in the industry. The popularity of them have not picked up huge just yet, such as with coins and things of that sort. But, and Andrew, you may speak to this here in just a second yourself, because I think you have some silver. I don't know if you have any gold backs. I mean, and I know someone that does have some gold backs. I've actually held them and kind of observed them up close and personal, and they are very, very cool. And to my knowledge, the cost of them are fair for relatively speaking, relative to the amount of grams of either gold or silver that is actually in the bill. And so my answer, James, is, or my opinion of it is, I think it could be a really solid way to expand the industry. And I do not talk about them in my education at all yet, because I don't think the reputation for them are there yet. I want to make sure you guys are investing in something that is recognizable by the whole world in case you ever need to actually trade with your metals. Not to sound super dramatic, I'm just saying if, not when, but if. The goldbacks and silverbacks are not there just yet, and so I don't even address them in my education, but my opinion is they could have potential. They could be a really good option for diversifying your overall metals allocation, and perhaps even using them for trading purposes. Andrew, what's your opinion on that kind of stuff? Because it is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I don't think they have the viability of them right now. I don't think is quite there.
That's a good way to put it.
But you know, in the future, things like that do tend to kick up. You know, that type of stuff, and especially when it comes. Now, if we get into the broader spectrum, on the geopolitical spectrum here, Ben, when we start talking about, okay, maybe the potential fall of the dollar and things like that, how do gold backs and silver backs and things like that look then, when they have some gold, silver related to them, they could probably be a little more useful in that regard, in that type of environment. But as of right now, I'm with you that the viability with them, I don't think is quite there, as opposed to just the aspect of, hey, this is pretty cool to hold on to. Retrospectively, I'm not exactly sure how it will look in the future. I mean, obviously, you know, when we start talking about our balls of sphere, or what do they call them? You're trying to look into them.
Sorry, Andrew. I was looking at a chat and I missed the very first part of that.
It's just the balls that the crystal balls, you know, like we don't have a crystal ball as to how things will look in the future, you know, that type of thing. Right. I was drowning there. I couldn't find the words.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just fact of the matter is, they are cool to have. I think the viability is not there yet. Perhaps in the future that it will be, but that's kind of where I just stand on it as of right now, especially as things look more toward perhaps I don't know about, you know, we've talked about OPEC, and I'm not OPEC, BRICS before, right? And the removal of the US dollar as a reserve currency and stuff like that. Maybe in those situations, you know, things like that start to look a little better. But only because there's some type of grammage to the actual either silverback or goldback in that specific regard. But that's essentially my opinion on it. Rodney has a decent question there for you, Ben. I understand that supply and demand determines price, but what is causing the drastic increase in price for gold? Are government buying gold, or is it just the economics?
Well, it's a little bit of both there, Roddy. Government central banks have been drastically increasing their gold reserves as of late. However, I don't think that's necessarily what is affecting the spot price. So, the specific number or value that you're referring to there, Rodney, is the spot price, the global spot price, and that has been going up like crazy. In fact, Andrew, if you want, feel free to go ahead and share your chart because we're running low on time anyway. Maybe what we can do is while we answer questions, we can incorporate kind of the current price action as we go through it. I think that would be beneficial, especially to Rodney's question here. But as far as what's causing it, Rodney, I think I think it's twofold. Number one, the BRICS nations or the BRICS bloc, that being Russia, China, South Africa, India, and there's one other one. Let's see. Brazil. That's the B. Those nations, as well as the new nations that have recently joined the BRICS bloc, are really ramping up their efforts to de-dollarize. Now, when they de-dollarize, everybody knows that they are going to back up whatever they replace the dollar with, that they want to have a significant reserve of gold to do that. So I think one of the things behind this recent massive surge in gold does have to do with the economics of the United States, has to do with the fragility of our economy, especially with the volatility of the upcoming election cycle. But I think it also has to do with investors around the world realizing gold is about to play a really significant role in the international monetary system once again, for the first time since the 70s. So that's a little bit of my personal opinion there. When you read articles about what's driving the prices, it'll have to do with recent inflation numbers and the reality that the Fed, won't necessarily be able to do exactly what they have been wanting to do. In other words, inflation is still high. When inflation is high, obviously that kind of drives up prices in general too. As you can see in the chart that Andrew was sharing, it's just been on a tear recently in that uptrend. But the Fed is having to be very careful about additional rate hikes, even though they know it's something they need to do. They have continued to be what we would call dovish. So when you read articles and things like that, a lot of the justification for the recent uptrend in gold and in silver will be for reasons like that. But my opinion is it's a little bit more deeper rooted than that. I think it's investors, big boys, institutions seeing the significant role that gold perhaps will imminently play in the global reserve scheme as things continue to change and as things continue to escalate in the Middle East and with the BRICS nations specifically. So that is a large topic. I kind of hit up on some of it there in that answer. It'd probably be worth talking about more when we have more time for it, through email, phone call, maybe on our next webinar. But that's kind of my, in a nutshell, answer as to why the prices have increased so much. Interestingly, I'll just throw this out really quick, Andrew. Premiums are down. Isn't that bizarre? We'll get into that more in a minute, maybe.
Well, that was another one of those fear things there, Ben. Fear tactic aspect of the market cycle when we were going through COVID. Remember, the premiums that just blew up, absolutely blew up when we were looking at 100% premiums and things like that. And eventually, they did get back to a point to where they were better to potentially buy. But I mean, silver for a while, as you well know, was pretty high up there. So we were kind of even not suggesting purchasing the Silver Eagle because of how high premiums were within the Silver Eagle at a point in time. So it's good to be able to determine, track, just like you do within your charting, right? Where gold and silver are on spot price. So what we're looking at here, and I'm using TradingView to do this because TradingView allows us to track the spot price of gold and silver. That's what we're currently looking at. As Ben was talking, you saw me draw in some trend lines here. We initiated, I believe it was on Monday, Ben, Monday or Tuesday. I put out an alert. And essentially, initiating a gold accumulation buy point, right? So either I think it was this day that we may have done it, Ben. Maybe it was one of these days that we put out the gold alert, essentially saying, okay, gold and silver, both gold and silver, we're looking pretty decent to buy. And interesting, right off the 10-day moving average here. So we do track gold and silver on a charting level. And a lot of the times too, we'll just specifically talk about just the charts, not necessarily what's going on throughout the economy, um, throughout the world, aspect of things. We just try to draw lines here. Those of you who are very familiar with drawing lines are probably going to be better at this than I am. um, but fact of the matter is, we very well know that when we're drawing lines, it's more of an art aspect of things, right? We want to try to get it as best we can. Is this the new support level? Potentially, maybe we can even potentially encompass this. Maybe perhaps something like this is possible. We would have to delete. Let's remove that. Oop, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to remove the drawings altogether, but just try to negotiate where the potential support line would be. Could we draw on a clone line here? Maybe we have multiple levels here, maybe something somewhere around here, somewhere around here for resistance. But aspect of that is gold and silver both are at potential supports, right? So it's either going to bounce up here, and that's where we feel that we've had that retracement within gold and silver. Now we're at the 20-day moving average lines. And this is what helps us determine what the potential better buy point can be, right? Just like within stocks, you buy at support, you sell at resistance type of thing. Well, gold is one of those things that it's good to accumulate any point in time, right? We've talked about that before, but in order to get a better bang for your buck aspect of things, it would be better for you to try to chart out where gold and silver is doing and then buy at support levels or areas that make more sense, right? Maybe perhaps this area could have made more sense too. But I think we did initiate a buy within this arena here for gold and silver back at this point, Ben. So we had a pretty good buy point our last time we initiated a buy, and we just had this run up, and we were able to see that run up within the buy that we had. So that was pretty decent. And then that's why, as of right now too, we're initiating another buy point because gold and silver are potentially at support level. So just keeping it simple there, Ben. On the charts, we have some potential support resistance lines. I have the dollar up here normally because the dollar is moving contrary to what gold is. So if the dollar is moving down, it's providing some alleviation off the shoulders of gold for it to be able to move up. Same thing with the 10-year treasury note, right? We're looking at the 10-year treasury note just in case if it's providing, or it helps us to provide a better understanding of what gold is doing, because normally they move in opposite directions, right? So if we're seeing an uptick within either the dollar or within the treasury note, then most likely what we're going to be seeing is a downturn or a downtick within gold, and then vice versa, that type of thing. There are times to where they're moving in the same direction, and there's we've covered that as well in some of the prospectors webinars, but we're kind of here at the top of the hour, Ben, so I'll go ahead and throw that back to you, leaving it on gold just for you to have another look real quick at what our trend lines look like, and then on silver, another idea for what our trend lines look like as well on silver. But as you can see, they're both in uptrending positions, looking like they're going to be bouncing up off support. So we believe that this is a pretty decent time for you to go ahead and accumulate more of the metals. So back to you there, Ben.
Awesome there, Andrew. Appreciate that. And yeah, everybody, as you can see, technically speaking, it's certainly, given the current technicals we have, certainly a pivot point off the averages as well as our trending support lines. That's why we initiated that recent buy. We'll keep close tabs on it, but metals are certainly hot right now. That is kind of the the name of the game at the moment. Let me briefly show you this. We're already 1 minute over the top of the hour. And again, for those of you who have never been on a Prospector webinar before, maybe you're not even a Prospector member, but you were invited to this because we wanted to share the information previously. One of the things we talk about we talk about two things. The spot price, which is what Andrew was just showing us, is what Rodney was asking about earlier. That is the global price of gold and silver valued upon immediate delivery. And that is the main number. That's the main value that you are going to be paying for when you buy either a gold or silver coin. For gold, it's roughly 96% of the price you will pay for a gold coin will be the spot price. And about 4%, maybe 5% will be the premium. Then for silver, it's usually maybe around 83% spot price, and then the rest will be premium. And so we like to look at both. Andrew was just showing you the spot price. Now on your screen, these particular, that's weird, my computer video turned on. When you look at my screen here, you will see a chart that you actually can't find anywhere else. These are, as you can see, it's a homemade chart. I created on a spreadsheet, but that's because these charts don't exist. They're premium charts. People don't track historical premium data, and we do this so that you can actually see the volatility, the supply and demand in premiums changing over time. As you can see for gold eagles in the left-hand corner, I have the gold eagle coin. That the chart that you are looking at represents that coin. And as you can see, the premiums are down. They were at 5% for a while. Now they're down to 4% on that. So really cheap premium on gold eagles. The thing is, the spot price is so high, it's just expensive. So we are at a pivot point. We're at a support line on the gold spot price chart, and premiums are low. So that is flashing a buy signal, in our opinion, in the short term. Now, obviously, you can hold out as long as you want, and maybe 3 months from now, gold will correct and go down and spot price will be cheaper, but it's not guaranteed. And since we don't know that, since we don't have a crystal ball, we base our buy points off of support pivots. Okay, so there's that. 4% premium for eagles, for gold eagles. Look at silver eagles though. Andrew, this one surprised me a little bit. Even silver eagle premiums are down right now. We're at like a 22% premium. Now, as you guys can see, there's tons of volatility here. Look at all that weird line graph that's all over the place. That represents supply and demand for this coin. Not necessarily gold and silver in general, but for this coin. And so you can glean a lot of really interesting information looking at these charts, because you can actually see what people are thinking, when they are the most scared and when they're buying the most silver or gold by looking at these charts. And so premiums are actually pretty low for silver eagles right now. We're at a support line on the spot price charts. Now is a pretty good time, perhaps really good time, to be buying some silver, because the spot price is down at a support level and premiums are down. And then here finally is just the rundown of all of the most popular coins in the world. So you have the American Eagle, the Maple Leaf, the Kangaroos, the Krugerrands, the Buffaloes, so on and so forth. And then right here is the gold version, or the gold equivalent of that, and over here the silver equivalent. So for gold, it's about the same all the way down. 4, even 3% premiums on the Australian Kangaroos right now. Gold premiums are fantastic. So if you have been looking for your first gold investment, we're at a support line, premiums are down. So remember that. For silver, 22% on the Eagles is actually pretty good, but look at the premiums for everything else. I mean, we're talking, forgive me, that one right there on the generic Buffalo doesn't look quite right. I need to double check that number. That should probably be 16%. I don't know why there's a digit missing, but on everything else, 12% for the Canadian Maples, 16% for the Texas Rounds. These are really, really good silver premiums. And so even for Eagles, 22% is not that bad. That's the most popular option in the world. But if your main objective is to just get the cheapest option, you may look at some of those other options. The Canadian Maple Leaf looks to be the best right now, assuming that 6% for the Buffaloes is incorrect. I don't know what happened there when I was inputting the data, but everything else looks pretty solid. So, Steven, you say, why are premiums so much higher than 20 years ago? Well, I would actually need to look at what premiums were 20 years ago, but I assume they were much lower. I will take your word for it there. But the answer would be the pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, and I'll end with this, everybody, because we're 6 minutes past the hour now. But guess what? If you're a prospector, we get to do this every single month. So consider becoming a Prospector member. If you're a Trader Max or a Trader Pro member, you already get access to this webinar every month. So just join us. But anyway, I'll end with this. The reason, Stephen, is because the pandemic happened. Before the pandemic, Silver Eagles were averaging around 12% premium, 12 to 14%. They absolutely exploded during the pandemic, at one point reaching 100% premium. And they have been coming down ever since, but they are still elevated. They haven't been below 20% to my knowledge. Well, actually, never mind. They have been below 20% at one point, but it was very brief, and they've been more elevated than historically speaking since that time. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason is just demand in general is higher for these things because people have a greater trepidation for what the economy looks like, what it's bringing, what the future holds than perhaps ever before, or certainly in recent decades. And so one reason why premiums are so elevated now, Stephen, especially when it comes to silver compared to maybe 20 years ago, is people are just generally more scared right now. And that drives demand, and demand drives the premiums. So that's a very quick answer to that great question. Hopefully that clears it up for you. But listen, guys, 7 minutes past the hour. I got to go ahead and let you go now. I so appreciate your time. It sincerely means the world to Andrew and myself. And we just can't wait to have the next section, the next session. But look at the chat one more time. Andrew, if you wouldn't mind putting it in there one more time for me. The ebook is free. It has everything we talked about today with regard to protecting yourself and knowing how to find a reputable dealer. Take that with you, put your email address in there, and you'll have all the information. And keep an eye out because we've got some really cool, really exciting precious metals education expanding later this year. And I want you guys to be the first to hear about it. So that's what we're going to do when you put in your email is we're going to let you know as soon as all of that is being released and ready. So thanks again, everybody. Andrew, I really appreciate your time as well. It's been awesome.
Yeah, we definitely had a good time doing this, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Absolutely, guys. Y'all have a blessed one, and we will see you next time. Check out the email address in the ebook. You can reach out to us anytime you need to, and we will be here for you. So y'all be blessed, and we'll see you next time.